Hi there. I know that bar models are difficult, and so I thought I would model how the study guide word problem should be solved. I know not everybody is doing the study guide. On top of that, as you might be able to see, there was a typo on the study guide. I fixed that here. This number should be 2,893. Let's just get into it so we can see how to do it if we want to use this math problem as one of our helpers for tomorrow. It says, note math facts, draw a bar model, do math problems, right answer. So what we need to do is first look at our math facts. The math problem says the copier made 4,289 copies, 2,893 copies were picked up by Mr. Kudva. The rest were for Mr. Thomas and Miss France. Miss France has 3 times as many copies as Mr. Thomas. How many did she have? So the first fact that we need to note is that the copier made 4,289 copies. So there's 4,289 copies made. And kids can write this however they want. It's mostly noting a math fact so they remember to use it. The second fact it says is that I took 2,893 copies. So Mr. K took 2,893 copies. Next it says Mr. Thomas and Miss France get the rest. Miss France has 3 times as many. It doesn't matter so much that we write down that the rest are for them, but it's an important fact to know. The more important part to know is that of those ones that are left, Miss France has 3 times more than Mr. Thomas. That's the thing that's really going to help us solve this problem. Finally, the last thing we do when we take notes is make sure we know what the question is. The question is, how many did she have? So we'll write down a little question mark and say Miss France's copies. That's what we're trying to find out. So, now that we've got that, how do we actually do the other steps of drawing the bar model, doing the math problems, writing the answers with labels? The bar model may not be necessary for the first step because some kids might be able to figure it out. But once we get past that, the next step confuses kids. So here's what we do. We say there were this many, some went away because I took them, and the rest were for these guys. Most kids can tell that's a subtraction problem. Just in case they can't, they could, if they wanted to, draw a little bar model that says, hey, here's all the copies. That is the whole for my bar. And then they can say, hey, there's a part for Mr. K, and there's a part for France and Thomas. We don't know how much this part is. We do know that there's 2,893 copies that I take. From knowing how part wholes work, we should know that when we know a total and we have one part and not the other, we can subtract those. Again, hopefully, most kids won't need a bar model for this. They'll just be able to see that that's subtraction because I took some away. And when we do the actual subtraction, we'll get 4,289 copies minus 2,893 copies. Some regrouping involved. 9 minus 3 is 6, but 8 minus 9 we can't do, so we'll turn it into an 18 by borrowing 1, get a 9. Can't do 1 minus 8 until we regroup that 1,000 to give us some more hundreds. Now I've got 11 minus 8 is 3, then I've got 3 minus 2 is 1. Now that I've got this, plus all my little ink smudges, fantastic, I can move on to the next step. It says the rest, so meaning this 1,396 copies, are for Miss France and Mr. Thomas. The important part is that Miss France has 3 times more. A lot of kids are going to say, well, I don't know how to figure out what Miss France has. A comparison bar model will let us figure that out. We'll draw 1 bar for Miss France and 1 bar for Mr. Thomas. Miss France has 3 times more, So we'll give Mr. Thomas one big old box, and then Miss France, who's got 3 times more, will get 3 boxes. Even when we don't know how much each of those represents, we do know the total because we just figured it out here. Both of them together have 1,396 copies. And if we know they've got that much together, we can also say, hey, look, there are 4 little sections here. And what we need to do is split these copies up into the 4 sections. The word that really helps kids get it is that we're splitting it up into these sections, and that should tell them we need to divide. We need to take 1,396 and divide it. Without the picture, a lot of kids might see that word 3 times more and want to divide it by 3 if they come up with the idea at all. However, there's really 4 separate sections. This is almost more like a ratio. Mr. Thomas has 1 part to Miss France having 3 parts. Therefore, there's 4 total parts. There's 4 total sections. So we need to divide this into 4 different groups. When we do that division, 3, 12, 1, bring down our 9, 4, 16, 3, I'm running out of space, get a 6. When I bring it down, 4 fits into 36 9 times with nothing left over, so there's no remainder. That means when I split this into 4 separate sections, each section gets 349. There's 349 copies in that box, 349 copies in that box, 349 here, and 349 here. Now at this point, some kids without pictures, even if they figured out to divide by 4, might say, okay, I divided, this must be my answer. Miss France has 349. But looking at the picture tells us that's not true. Miss France has 3 sections, and there's 349 copies in each of those sections. That means we're going to have to multiply this by 3. Or I suppose we could do 349 plus 349 plus 349. Either way, we need to put all of those together in order to find out Miss France's copies. So we go ahead and do 349 times 3. We get a 27. Regroup that. 12 plus 2 is 14. Regroup that. Get a 3 plus 1 is 10. So Miss France has 1,047 copies altogether. Now, as far as an answer is concerned, remember it asked us to write the answers with labels. A lot of kids, the easiest way to do that is just to write a sentence. Miss France has 1,047 copies. The question needs to be answered. How many did she have? I should have one part of my label that says, what is this number counting? It's counting the copies. The other part of my label should tell me the answer to the question. So I'll say, Miss France had 1,047 copies. Theoretically, it could have asked how many copies Mr. Thomas had. It could have asked how many each of them had. When we get more complicated later in the year, it'll even say, how many more did Miss France have than Mr. Thomas, and you'd be comparing this section that sticks out. But for what we're doing right now, we're basically taking our facts, using these 2 facts to notice I can figure out a total, using this to make a comparison where Miss France has more than Mr. Thomas, splitting up our total into the sections, and then using the sections to figure out Miss France's total. That's it. I hope everybody understands how that worked and uses that to help them with the math problem tonight. Thank you.